to call this meeting to order at 10 a.m. It is June 25th, 2018 at 10 a.m. and we are in the Joe N. Idolette Junior Teacher Education Center, and this is our budget workshop. And at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Moxley.
Yes, good morning, board members. Thank you for being here. I know we have many items of business today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This morning, we're going to spend our time looking at the capital budget and the 5-year capital projects. So we have our team here. We have John Teskey, we have Nick Westenberger, and we have Kim Copeman, who are going to actually walk us through this. I think we start with Kim Copeman on the budget.
Okay, you ready? Good morning. We wanted to show you a draft of the capital funds revenue and appropriations that we have scheduled so far. We will not get our certification from the tax collector until July 1st, so it's still in preliminary draft form. But we start out for the 1920 year with property taxes of about $28 million. And we are not going to be getting any PICO maintenance money this year from the state. They have continued to fund the charter school capital outlay, so they did not give any of the school districts PICO this year. So that's something
I have
new.
a question of clarification. However, the 1.5, we are not sharing that. They do
No.
not get a share of
That's
that
correct.
anymore.
Right,
Just
it's
wanted
being
to clarify.
provided through the state. Yes.
Right.
And then the next line down, 4, is the state charter capital outlay. That's a flow through from the state, and then we pass that along to the charters. Capital outlay and debt service, we have about $110,000 budgeted. We have interest of $32,000. Other is some of your fuel tax rebate, dealer's tax, FPL rebates, that kind of revenue coming in. And we have impact fees budgeted at $1,100,000, giving us a total revenue of $31,095,758. So from the revenue portion, we start to appropriate the budget, and we have our debt service going out that we transfer and pay for our debt service. We also have a transfer to general fund for maintenance cost and property casualty premium. And then we also have the flow through for the charter schools coming back out for the expenditures. So it leaves a net available budget of $13,954,473 on line 23. Of that money, we budget for relocatables, which is our lease portables. And then we have budgeted for 10 school buses at $1,050,000. We have the restricted impact fees, which can only be spent for student growth. And then that leaves the projects assigned for the 5-year planning document of $11,404,473. So, and like I said, this is draft form. It's likely to change when we get the final figures going forward.
So I do have a question, but does anyone else have a question first? No. So where in here do we have the roll forward of unused funds?
This is not this is just the new budget, the new revenue for the new fiscal year. The roll forward isn't. Once we go through the process this week with the accounts payable run and we do the accrual run on July 9th, then we roll the purchase orders and we'll know what our balances for the roll forward will be then.
So this is the absolute minimum, and then we'll have I'm going to call it it seems like bonus money that we'll have coming back into this, correct?
The monies that we have already appropriated in the current fiscal year, we'll roll, if we have not spent it, we'll roll forward for those projects that it's
Okay.
already assigned to.
Okay.
But they're assigned funds. They're not unassigned funds. I mean,
Correct. They're assigned to a project, yep.
Okay. All right.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
It's over there.
And now we'll move to the detail of how the capital projects, so when you look at the expenditure side, where you see projects assigned in the facilities physical plant, then you're going to now see how are they projected to be spent.
Correct. So my portion of this is really the building, the sticks and bricks part of it here. I feel like I'm echoing. Here at my head. So as we went through this last year, and a couple of you weren't here, but we really focus on that 1920 year. The outlying years are projects that we have appropriated, but those could change depending on needs that jump up within years, things like that. So the real focus of this is the 1920 year. That's kind of the real hard stuff that we're looking at right now.
Mr. Westenberg, before you go any further, because there are 3 board members that are new to this process, let's just kind of walk through, if you look at how the information's arranged. I think that's important to see. This particular chart, you're going to see the school, you're going to see the need, you're going to see the estimated budget. And when you look at that budget, that is for the 5-year capital plan. So that's the total budget for those 5 years. Then as you work through, you'll see the other column, which is the total budgeted. That is for the 5 years. So sometimes when I first went and looked at the chart, I kept going to that being, that's the year, that's the year. No, that's the total for the 5 years. And then when you move to the right of the chart, you're going to see it broken down year by year over the next 5 years. So what Mr. Westenberger is talking about is if you really want to focus on what's happening right now moving into the 1920, you want to go to that first column that's identified 1920, and you're going to see those projects. The column to the left, remember, is the total of all 5 years, what's expected to be spent in that line item for that school. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so F, again, is the total budgeted through the 5 years, and then as you go out, G, H, I, J, and K, those are for the individual years, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you guys want to go by line, school by school. We can do that through 1920. Treasure Coast Technical College, we have nothing in the first year. Beachland Elementary, we have to replace some sinks and cabinets in there. They're old sinks and cabinets that are in the classrooms. They have water fountains and stuff in them, so water's getting into the particle board and it's expanding and blowing up. And
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Thank you. So in the 18-19 year, we had carpet to tile replacement. So if
Correct.
we were looking at last year's budget, capital outlay, we would have seen underneath Beachland, carpet to tile. And there
Correct.
would have been funds that were appropriated for that. And we
Correct.
have spent that on the agenda. We have approved the spending of that money. I just wanted to, I think it's important to understand how cyclical some of these things are.
Correct, yes. Yep.
I think that's a really good point, because what you're seeing is this point moving forward. It does not negate the work that was done this year or the year prior to this.
Can we just get that as a recap?
Sure.
How difficult would it to be to pull that from another spreadsheet? So we have it in
We can pull
comparison.
the
this
18,
past
19
year's
what was
5-year
shown,
plan.
18.
Current 5-year plan is on our website, so
Yeah,
everybody
okay.
has access to that. So, but I can provide the
Perfect.
current 5-year plan
Yeah.
to everybody right now.
I just think it's important because you'll see a school like Beachland, you say, oh, wow, they're not doing anything there, but you have done an enormous amount in the prior 3
Correct.
years. So,
Right.
I think it's just important to have that historical frame of reference.
Right, yeah.
Mrs. Justice, you actually, I'm sorry.
Can you speak into the microphone a little bit closer, please? Thank you.
Ms. Justice, you actually touched on a project, carpet to tile, that's actually could be funded through facilities and physical plant. So depending on the size of the project, Nick may fund it or Bob Michaels may fund it. So great topic.
It
to
is all
talk about.
funded out of capital, though.
Sure.
Originally, yep.
So moving on to Citrus, again, we have another project to replace the classroom sinks and cabinets in there. Fire alarm upgrade. I'm going to bring out my ruler here to go. We have a carpet to tile project at Citrus. And we're replacing the DX units. DX units are the old AC units there.
What does it mean when something is in red, Mr. Westenberger?
Those were just added. So anything that you see in red was
Okay.
added through this cycle here. Things
Because of
that
an
are in-
identified need?
Correct, yes. Things that were in black were things that in the previous 5-year plan were already in there, so they haven't changed. So if you were to look back at the 18-19 capital 5-year plan, you would see some of these things in these outlying years still. So anything that you see in red has been added as we've gone through this, yes.
Can I ask a question? Under Beachland, line 6, BAS conversion to Metasystem, is that the card key entry?
No, BAS conversion to Metasys is building automation system, so that's what we control our air conditioning with.
Okay, all right.
It
So
also
none of this would
controls
be-
lighting.
None of this would be, those systems wouldn't be included in this plan?
No, and I'll speak to that right now, we're about to get
Okay.
to it, but there's a line item called, on line 18, called security enhancements.
Okay, so it's
So
district-wide,
we
you
have,
didn't put it by school?
we have put all of the, what we're calling security-type projects into a security enhancements line item as to not identify by school. So this is a public document, so we don't want to say, hey, we're doing X at this school for security.
Well, the only reason why I bring that up is because teachers have asked me, when are we getting those systems? So that's why I wanted to know clarification,
Yeah.
where is that located
Yeah,
here?
the
But it
BAS
is in plan,
Correct.
okay.
Yes, it's in the security enhancements. Now, we have to go through and prioritize what schools were doing at
Sure.
those times, but
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mrs. Justice.
No, that was just the point. We went through this when we started after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and when we were meeting, the previous board had really said, we were identifying at some points where we were doing things. And we did say, can we please, leave that off of agendas? And so that in here, if the board wanted to know specifically what security enhancements were happening, perhaps there could be another, at our next executive session, maybe there could be this, but with some of those security enhancements listed by school.
Correct. So the district-wide, the ones you see, line 14, district-wide white fleet replacement, so we have $100,000 for white fleet. That's not buses, that's the white fleet that's rolling around, our cars, maintenance cars, things like that, maintenance trucks. Furniture, fixture, and equipment, $250,000 out there, that's district-wide, so that's for every school that needs a picnic table, or chairs, or kitchen tables, or whatever it is. Emergency power and transfer switches, those are for generators, so Bob Michael deals with those, maintenance of those things, upkeep of those to make sure that when we have a power outage, the transfers over to the generator. Performing arts allocation, district-wide, again, $50,000, and that's for upkeep of instruments, I believe, yeah,
It's for the upkeep of what?
the instruments.
And we split this funding through North and South County, so the two band directors at the high schools oversee this budget, and they take care of instruments for the middle schools as well as the high schools.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead, I think you're probably going to have the question I have.
Yeah, because this came up a couple months ago about the sound systems in the auditoriums. So,
We have
put it in here?
we
Or
have
did you
those
put it
in the
by
capital
school?
5-year plan.
Thank
So we
you.
have Sebastian River High School and Vero Beach
Vero
High
Beach,
School.
thank you. I wanted to make sure those were included.
5-year plan. This
Okay.
is just an allocation, and I really don't do anything with this. This is just a line item in there.
Understood, but it's under the school then instead?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I just want to make a point here because I think it's an important point. There have been in the past times when the principal really is the one who advocates for their school as far as capital improvement is concerned. And it's my understanding, and perhaps we could just have an overview because new board members are maybe not aware of the process of you walking schools with principals. And I know that you do that on a fairly regular basis. How the need is identified, and then there have been instances in the past where there was a principal who may be a great instructional leader, but perhaps wasn't the strongest advocate for capital improvements on their campus. That's frustrating sometimes for parents, right? So just a question about, I think in general, how that communication happens between our facilities department and schools might be appropriate.
So every year around January timeframe, we do what we call a capital needs assessment. So we go to the schools and we walk with the principals, and we try to get them before to give us an idea of what they're looking at for a capital improvement. We've had issues where they give ideas that they want to do, but they're really not capital projects, they're more maintenance type things. So Bob and I, both Director of Maintenance, Bob Michael, go out and we meet with all the principals. We walk through the campus, we sit down, we talk to them about capital needs, what they need, what they're envisioning for their school, if they need, a new cafeteria floor, if they need a new wing. These are all things that we sit down, we talk about. And they give me a list, and we come back with the list, and we start to compile those lists, and then we start to look at things that Bob knows that he needs maintenance-wise, things that we know that we need from a facility standpoint, and we try to prioritize those needs, and then that's what is populated into this capital five-year plan. So it's kind of a conglomeration of all of those things, what we see from a maintenance side, what we see from a facility side, and then what we're hearing from the principals and the administrators, what they'd like to see at their schools.
So go ahead.
I just wanted to add, for Nick, the estimates are strictly an estimate. Until they actually do the project, it may be more or less.
Correct, yeah.
So-
These are best guesses here, if you will.
Right.
So a project could be underfunded, and we've got to find funds. It could be overfunded, and then we'll take those funds to use either at the school or in a different area. So, yeah, these are not hard numbers here. But I can't go out and, bid out all of this stuff and say, this is the exact
Right,
number here, because
right.
it just doesn't
It's
work
an
like that.
estimate. So Nick, again, the 50,000 was for district-wide seats, you said?
Musical instruments.
Musical instruments, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Musical instruments. There is something that has never really been made clear, and hopefully with the new CFO coming on and working with Mr. Dasky, a clear answer can be given, is the schools that charge these fees to have these groups come in to utilize the facility, it seems that a portion of that should be set aside for improvements and replacement for sound systems, seating, whatever it is, because with these groups coming in, that's wear and tear. I'm not really getting a clear understanding of how that's coming back to the school for these improvements, because I don't really think it's necessarily equitable to take from the general or the capital budget improvements for these facilities whenever some schools are getting these fees from these groups to utilize it, and then the school utilizes those fees for other projects in the school. I'm not getting a clear, I'm not getting a clear understanding how that's equitable, and we're not taking that out of the general.
Good morning, Ms. Orr. Thank you. Excellent point. So first of all, the facility use agreement that any school can use. So I want to use a hardcourt, I want to use a gym, I want to use the Performing Arts Center. So the facility use agreement is actually an agreement, a contract that runs through the risk department. So Mrs. Mercado is actually overseeing that. She's in the process now of updating and reviewing that. I think she's very close to being done. So our department's provided input on what we suggested for pricing and gave her input, but it's a risk function and it falls within risk. So Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Racine met last year to review the facility use agreement with her, and we understand that when a group comes in and rents the Performing Arts Center in Vero Beach, they can't charge that same rate at Sebastian because they would squeeze out many of the churches that use Sebastian's PAC because it's a different venue for pricing, so they do adjust their pricing. Principals have the discretion of charging custodial fees, deposits, law enforcement presence. They have the ability to choose which level that the group is. The Boy Scouts, Jake Owen has rented the facility before. So there is some flexibility with how much they do charge for each venue and price. With that said, I know Mr. O'Keefe used about $10,000 last year to replace his mobile headsets, his walk-around headset speakers that he was using. He did pay for that internally with his funds that he was generating. So I know the awareness was brought about last year from several board members and Dr. Rendell. So I do feel with that exposure, I want to say he's being more proactive with using his funds, and he did purchase those items. We in the physical plant department maintain the lift, the orchestra lift. We maintain the rigging. We bring in the vendors for the curtains. We have to really do those for the schools because they are very specific vendors. Many of them come out of the Orlando area that the schools wouldn't have access to. So we assist them with those other things. It's a cooperation, it's a collaboration between both schools, but That doesn't mean the facility use agreement can't be more streamlined, and it is in the process of being rewritten now and made more equitable and fair.
Well, I think that's probably, this is getting into the weeds of what we're looking at right now, but that is a conversation I'd like us to have on how that's working currently, more detailed, because I want to make sure that we're charging enough to the groups coming in to cover our costs, because, we're given X amount from the state on this, and we really don't have too much wiggle room. And so I just want to make sure we're charging enough,
I think what I hear, the question you're really asking is that we charge fees for the use for outside groups to come in and use it. It's wear and tear on our facility, that money should follow to replace the wear and tear. So what I really hear is we're upgrading and updating the agreement, but where does the money flow? And how does the money flow back to what it was intended to collect? So to me, if you collect X dollars for the use of this building, yes, there are custodial expenses, there may be some custodial supplies for restrooms and that type of thing, but then there's a certain percent that is to pay for the wear and tear. How is the money following what the intended collection of that is? And I think that has to be looked at.
Did I hear you say that it's flexible fee? So, and who determines which group pays how much?
So there's 3 levels depending on non-for-profits, and then it specifically states churches, non-for-profits, 403Bs, and then it specifically tells the principals which level they should move to. It shows them what insurance to ask for, hold harmless agreements. And so when the Boy Scouts want to come in and do their open enrollment, we don't charge the Boy Scouts to come in and use the cafeteria. They're listed on there as, I think it's a level 1, don't quote me, level 1 or 3. But it explains within that manual where they would fall and how much they would charge.
So there is a manual, there are set fees?
Yes, ma'am,
It's not
that's-
determined like which group pays which money by the
No,
principal?
it's
Because that's
the,
what I heard, and I wanted to be very clear that there's a set fee schedule.
Yes, there is a
Okay.
set fee, but a principal could say, well, I don't need 2 custodians there, I only need 1. Or a principal could say, in this day and age, I do want an SRO present for this, and they can make that adjustment. So the flexibility is there with the type of staffing and how many they need, but no, it specifically tells you based on square footage what you should rent your field for, what you should rent your gymnasium for.
Thank you
In that.
for that
Yes,
clarification.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I think we're continuing with Dodgertown.
Moving on, Dodgertown. So again, replacement of cabinets and sinks. We have a fire alarm upgrade, and we have a cowl wall replacement. The cowl wall, you probably don't know what that is, but the cowl wall is basically the kind of sunlights that are in the corridors of the buildings, and you'll see the same project at Gifford. Gifford Middle School has a cowl wall replacement. Those are kind of the skylights that are in there. So they're in bad shape at both Dodgertown and Gifford when we get to that. Yes?
Darcy, so are we replacing it with the same material?
It will be the same style. It's
It's
same,
a different material?
correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it will still be the natural lighting that comes in,
Sure.
but it's not going to be exactly the same as what's up there right now.
Okay.
If you haven't seen that, it's something to see.
Yeah, it's
Where is that over there?
at Dodgertown. It's on the wing back by the bus loop. I'm not sure what wing number that is.
Okay. All right, I'll look for it when I'm over there.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
pretty.
What you're receiving is this past year's 5-year capital plan. So the draft is what we're working off of right now for discussion, but point of reference is the one that says final, and that's last year.
I would like, after we get through this, run through.
We will.
Real quickly, what
Absolutely.
we not completed yet on here.
Yep.
Okay,
We can do that.
thank you. Okay.
Okay. Bellsmere.
Fellsmere Elementary, basically, I'm putting a new marquee sign up there. They have an old, yes, ma'am?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to ask you a question about that.
Go
So, I think the marquee signs are important. I understand that it's like kind of the hello of the school, right? So I understand that it's important. And I would not disagree that Fellsmere needs a new marquee sign. I think that we have a number of schools that actually need new marquee signs. But how do we, as a school district, when we have so many security enhancements to make that we know are such priorities, right? How do we justify spending money on something that's so aesthetic?
I can give you just what the findings from Safe Havens were, that signage and communication is part of a security tool to use with parents and public. Hey, stay away, gas leak in school, stay away. Flooding zone area. So the signage, we actually, I would say, scored higher on our, the rubric or the matrix they used, because some schools did have the marquee sign. It can be updated remotely. It can be updated if you're not physically there. The secretary, administrative assistant can access it and say whatever you want them to say. So they do look nice,
But they serve
they
an
do
important
serve
purpose.
a small purpose for security. Their number one is communication.
Well, I mean, communication,
Parent
I think it would be argued, I mean,
involvement.
Dr. Schiff has brought up many times, there are many different ways that we create a secure campus. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that.
If that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving on to Gifford Middle, we have some restroom renovations going on there, 1300 wing. Again, the cow wall replacement, if you look at Gifford's cow wall replacement, it's over 2 years because it is enormous. Every wing out there has the cow walls, so we've got to do that whole thing. So it probably not feasible to be done in one summertime. So we're going to have to break it up over 2 years. A little bit of that money in the beginning there is going to be for some engineering design type work.
I noticed that painting was added to the end, like to 5 years out.
Correct.
That's one of the schools I feel like we got to give some more attention to. It's just,
Gifford Middle School.
Gifford Middle.
yeah. So I'm just gonna
Make a note.
make a note of that. I know sometimes we have projects, and then, I'm just one,
No,
so
I'm
I'm
not gonna
not,
disagree
I'm
with you. I
not,
think
I'm
that-
not demanding this happen, but my opinion is if we have extra funding come through over the next few years, or unused funding, Gifford Middle is that school that I want to see us
And that's
put
why I
some
kind
more
of said
love
these
into.
outlying years or
Yeah, yeah.
bookmarks, if you want to call it. I mean, we can move things around, but anything that I move into up a year, I've got to move something out of that year, so.
Well, I know you
Move
guys do
projects in
a
and out.
really good job in coming in under budget. So as we accumulate those funds, we can look at scattering some of that into there.
It's possible.
How many square feet of air-conditioned space do we have in the district?
I don't have that number offhand.
I did know what it was.
I honestly don't know.
I just want to say, like, if anyone, I mean, I think it's important when we go through this, when you look at, like, there's a lot of money, my husband and I would call it, it's not pretty money to spend, right?
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not, so when you look at $2 million, I mean, the chillers and the air conditioning systems and the automated systems are so expensive. And then even the lift grade,
Yeah.
the lift station upgrade,
Lift
I'm
station,
sorry.
yeah.
I mean,
And-
it's all-
And these are things that, when the principals see this, and I go to them and say, hey, you've got these coming in your 5-year plan, they're like, oh, that's great.
yeah.
Because it's not
Right.
something that they're
Well,
really
until
excited
the air isn't
about.
coming on, and
Right,
then, it's
exactly. But-
August, and
But
right.
these are a necessary evil. These are things that we
Yeah.
have to do to
It's like,
keep.
what is it when you guys clean out the retention ponds, when you have to dredge out?
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's not, they're not glamour projects. They're not things that people are looking at going, I can't wait for that to
Yeah,
happen at
yeah.
my
Right.
school, but they are
Yeah.
things that are necessary, things
Yes.
that need to happen,
Yeah,
so.
and that is true. I mean, yeah, obviously, it's like the other day, I had to get a new vacuum, and that wasn't
not fun
some-
money to
It wasn't fun.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not.
I'm like,
You're
it was
absolutely
not
right.
excited.
Shoes would be more fun.
So this was,
You didn't get it for your birthday, though, did you?
no.
Not going for punishment, no.
No.
Okay.
I have some,
Moving on. Indian River Academy, we have a chiller replacement scheduled, and we also have an exterior walk-in freezer there.
Exterior walk-in freezer, is that paid out of food service funds?
No, we're covering
You're
that out
covering
of
that out of
capital.
capital.
Yeah, yeah. So
Why?
anything on
I was
here
going
is.
to say, is that
out of capital.
eligible to be paid out of the food service improvements?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it could be.
oh, I think that's.
Then you pay it out of the
Ooh,
food,
yeah.
I mean,
And I don't know.
It's part of the building envelope when
It
the
is,
school was
correct.
built. So I
Yeah.
think that's why they.
Okay, that's why I wanted to know, if this is the actual building
Yeah.
section, not the actual freezer that's built in there, or is it?
This
It's
is
the whole thing?
This is the freezer that goes in there. So when you walk in through the to the
Okay.
kitchen, and you walk into the cooler and then the freezer. So it is
But
within the
is it
kitchen
an
area.
extension of the building? Or is it within the
Yeah.
envelope of the building?
I mean, I would just see if it's eligible.
It-
I don't know.
It's both.
No,
It's an
Okay, gotcha.
exterior,
Absolutely.
so it was there, and now it's.
Gotcha.
yeah.
I would love to see that come out of that fund, and then that would free us up 75,000 to use toward,
Paint.
I give her apparently.
That's for.
Okay.
But also, sorry,
Absolutely.
but I think before doing that, we have to also know what's the food service budget and make sure that it's not harming something in that budget, because I know
Right,
Mrs.
so-
Justice has mentioned
Right.
how
That's a
we
very
really
healthy
need some.
fund. Yeah.
It's very healthy.
It's a healthy fund, so
Well-
when, if they're looking, here's the thing, if they're looking in food service and they're saying, well, we could replace this line because this line's a little rusty, or, not rusty, this line could be prettier, let's say, right? Or we could use $75,000 to replace this freezer, and we can free up $75,000 in this capital plan for a safety improvement, that's,
Yeah,
It's
and I'm not
using your
arguing
money
one way or the
wisely.
other. I'm
Yes.
just saying that, everything has
Yes.
an opportunity
Yes.
cost.
sure.
In addition to an actual
Certainly
cost.
something we can look at to see if food services can do it. And
Okay, moving on.
moving on to Osceola, 2 chiller replacements going on at Osceola.
Can I stop you a second?
Yes?
For Liberty Magnet, there was nothing spent in 2018-19, correct?
I don't believe so.
And so nothing spent again in 1920?
Correct.
Is that because that school is in perfect shape? Or good there?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's one of our newest
It
schools.
is, it's
not
nice
the
when you
newest
walk
school,
through there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure that they're not being.
We did, yeah, we have done work there. We just did a
Okay.
chiller there, so we've done some stuff there.
Got it.
Um,
You
it's not-
said we spent money last year in the other schools, that's why you see nothing spent this year. So I just
Yeah.
noticed that school had nothing spent. Okay.
Yeah, we just last summer replaced a chiller there, so again, not a
Oh,
glamour.
last summer?
Not a glamour project, but something that needed to be done.
So wouldn't that need to be reflected on our last year's final layout?
It may have been in the
Spreadsheet?
17-18
It may have been in
budget.
the 17-18,
Okay.
and we did it, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure they're getting some love.
They're getting love, yes.
And
Yes.
physical plan is active at every school. They have on campus, they share a custodial staff with other schools, a plan operator. So fences, gates, landscaping, pressure cleaning, all those things are happening internally with the custodial staff and the plan operators. I mean, every school. I know that school's doing an excellent job with completing their work orders. I was there speaking with the plan operator, so things get done very fast there at Liberty Magnet.
Okay, good.
So Osceola, we said the chiller replacements there, 2 chillers there, and a fire alarm upgrade. Osceola Middle, carpet to tile campus-wide. So this is a pretty big project that physical plant, Bob Michael usually takes care of all the carpet to tile things. We've got a lot of carpet going there, so we're going to try to, between myself and Bob, we'll figure out how we're going to administer that project, but that's $200,000 worth of tile that we're working on there. And again, these are, we have to do these in the summertime usually, unless we can do a classroom here, a classroom there over a break, so it's a lot of work that needs to go on, so it may carry over into another year as well.
Just to note, I am noticing here the paint, the building exterior.
Correct.
Okay, so my understanding is, who chooses the paint colors? Because I feel like we need some help in that
I
department.
can say that I will not choose the paint colors.
I don't think it should be, I think we should use some professionals.
And I've honestly, so I know this one, we have Sebastian River High School in the works, we have Gifford in the works, so I was thinking about this the other day, trying to find some consultant of some sort that can help us with paint colors.
We have a lot of people that could probably help with paint colors in-house, where we can save money on
I think,
consultants.
in my
that that's a wasted.
In my experience, we have such nice community partners.
Yes.
And when we were doing Beachland, one of the architects in town, Clem Shop, was nice enough to donate some services. Nick actually spoke with him to look at colors and to see maybe what colors would work with the community there. So I would imagine if we asked for some, if we put out to the Builders Association, we could use some volunteer help to pick some colors. I bet we could get an architect or
Dr.
someone.
Moxley and I and John as well had a conversation about that the other day, about how we were going to go about picking these colors.
Well,
Yeah, because sometimes they get picked by a
I
team
don't-
at the school, and there's some
Yeah.
interesting colors.
Yeah, I don't want to be the fall guy for
Well,
the colors.
I really think because this is an investment to paint these schools, we're up into the millions of dollars, and you can't put that paint up and think, that's not a good color, let's redo this. You're stuck with it for 10, 15 years. My suggestion is we tap into our local professionals that might want to provide their expertise and suggestions, but also have a, let's vote on this. Let's vote on the three choices so that we're not stuck with something that we're 15 years of.
Well, yeah, and there should be some consistency.
Yes, absolutely. I have 3 hands up. I had Mrs. Rosario, then Mrs. Barrenborg. Okay.
I have, on other occasions, mentioned Oslo Middle School as a high priority for me. I know that, I don't know how many other board members, the new board members, have had a chance to get there, but, and Dr. Moxley, we actually just talked about this, I believe, last week. When you walk in, Oslo Middle School needs crazy love. I don't know if the priority for only those particular wings is going to really make a difference. Paint interior 200, 700, and 900, and then we're going to exclude all of the other wings. I really would love for,
Excuse me,
yeah,
I don't,
that's okay.
okay, I got you now, okay.
I'm in
sorry,
Oslo,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay,
I'm
all
in,
right.
I'm in Oslo, line 63.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
We only have, that school is huge. That's a very, very big school. And so we're almost going to put a Band-Aid and, a light little color here, but then drib drab over here. And so we're not really giving it the attention that it really needs. Is there anything that we can do to make Oslo a priority? Really? The inner hallways, even the little tiny corridor going into their their orchestra room where they, play the instruments, and even that little hallway, it's so dark, the lighting is dim. It's almost like you're walking in through a very dark cave-like environment until you get into the classroom. It really, really needs attention. Some of the all of the classrooms there need attention. They have incredible sized rooms, but they are really, I just think Oslo has not been attended to in a very, very long time. So is there anything that we can do to move some things around so that we are not just doing a couple of wings, but we,
Well, again, like I said, it's difficult to do a whole school in a summer, even painting. So we've got to break these things up into sections. So it's not an overnight, this isn't the Home and Garden channel where you turn it on and 30 minutes later, everything's
Right.
done.
yeah.
So it does take an amount of time. So could we move stuff into 1920? We
You might-
could, but then we've got to move a project of like value out of 1920 back out. So
Well, I mean,
if we feel that it's a priority that we need to.
we
Well, I
have
think
the,
that-
what is that, I keep forgetting the name of that day, Mrs.
Okay, yes, the
What
day
is
of
that?
caring, but the
Caring.
day of caring is like we scrub some, so we fix up a garden. We're not,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
can't
we're-
paint
we're not
classrooms.
going
But
in.
I want to make, I have a comment I'd like to make. The interesting thing is, I have been on the board for 3 years now, right?
2.5.
Almost 2.5 years. So I have had an opportunity to go to every school. I'm not going to disagree with Mrs. Rosario that Oslo does need attention. But there are other schools, and I don't know that you have been to every school, and I'm not going to ask you, and I'm not making, you are a new board member, and it takes time to visit schools, so I'm not asking in any way about anything, other than to say that I could say that about 5 other schools. I could mention places in 5 other schools where they're at Gifford, they do their orchestra in a closet. I mean, there's no windows. It's like it's a cave, and so I just look at this now with some understanding, as I've spent years, that I recognize as a board member, I don't do the facilities walkthroughs with you, but you do, right? So I have a large amount of trust in the way that you prioritize things. It's not to say that, as a board member, you can't highlight things. But I will tell you, I know that you really do try to spread the money as far as possible.
Okay, so I have expressed a concern here with Oslo, and I just think that we need to look at other ways of trying to give them the attention that they have not had in quite a while.
Thank you, Ms. Ort. Mr. Osorio, I think after the last workshop we had a week or
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember.
We heard your comments, so we went back, Nick and Mr. Michaels and I, we met as a team. So Nick and Bob went out to Oslo and walked with Ms. Hofer, and then I went out last week and walked the school with Mr. Kinsley.
Perfect.
And we did identify some, we call like cosmetic things. It needs to be pressure cleaned, the courtyard needs pressure cleaning. We have 2 picnic tables there that need to be replaced. One of them was rusting with a hole through it. Those physical plant type things we can oversee, not facilities related. We know areas that needed some fill, some dirt, root exposure. They needed mulch. Those are internal things. So Nick wanted to go to make sure these weren't facility related, and Bob was there, took notes on everything, and then I did the same. We actually walked these wings with Mr. Kinsley. We went in the bathrooms. We know which ones need some attention. And I just want to remind everyone, Oslo is a shelter school, so our priority is to get that carpet out of there and get it tiled, because we all know what happens during shelter.
Right.
We want to get our
Right.
shelter schools, we want that carpet out immediately. So that's why we had moved up carpet to tile projects with those level 1 shelters quick. But I would just say, please give us some time, give us the summer to try and work on that courtyard area, and please walk it again and let us know what you see. But many of those cosmetic things we can do in-house.
That's good to hear.
So-
Thank you for doing the walkthroughs, even after it was mentioned. I appreciate that.
Mrs. Barrenborg?
I was just going to make a short comment about the colors.
Oh, okay.
Going back to that.
Yes,
School color is a sense of pride.
yes.
And I think when you have school colors, your school should reflect those colors. And so when I walk on a campus and I don't see school colors,
See pink.
I'm like, what are your school colors, So I think that should be a consideration when you're looking at colors, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Barrenborg, you're right. Being in the principal seat as well, you have some principals who are vested with the tradition of the school. They want the original colors. This is what it is. That was me at Citrus, hunter green and yellow. Hunter green and yellow. So I had my SAC, my PTA. We previewed it at mini meetings. We voted on it. We had parent input,
Good.
kid input. I think we even did a survey monkey with the kids. We did all these things. Not that the community, there's experts out there, but they may give you some colors that they want that have nothing to do with the school. So when the flick was painted, we got some interesting colors that some community members wanted it painted, and it was not Fighting Indian related. So, but it's good to hear from everybody, but I think it comes down to the principal, what their mindset is. Are they holding to the school colors, or are they going to let a panel of people in the school change the colors? And that upsets some people who are really vested here traditionally, so.
I have a follow-up then. Principals come and go in a school.
Correct.
And painting is going to stay there 10 to 15 years. It needs to be a committee, or it needs to be above the principal. The principal should have input, absolutely. But I think that when you're looking at school color, tradition, that sense of community, believe it or not, school color matters. And I think that that should be something that's a committee or something. It should not be a principal's choice with, a group of people at the school.
Right.
I agree with Mrs. Barrenborg on that. I mean, it is one of the key contributing factors to climate and culture in a school. And it actually can tie children to that school in the sense that they're proud of it and they want to work harder, and their academics will actually increase, as we know that science research tells us, when climate and culture is tangible and real and lived through, it affects the children academically as well.
Well, and Dodgertown is one of my favorite campuses, and it goes back to the colors. And, well, you know, it's not just the colors, but when I walk on Dodgertown, it's just such a beautiful campus.
Yeah.
I love you know, the choices of the blue, and you walk up and the way the lights have the baseballs. It's just a really neat campus, even though it's, how old is that campus?
Right, but I think the point would be that, like,
Yeah.
at Dodgertown, the buildings aren't painted royal blue,
No.
right?
But
The accents are royal blue, so I
right,
think there's a way to
right.
incorporate school colors in a tasteful way.
But
so.
I do want to go back to, I understand that, you know, and we laid it out, I think it was on Friday, where our priorities are. And not all our priorities, but for this year, you know, I really want to see Gifford Middle, I feel like needs a lot of help with just the ambiance of walking into that campus and feeling warm and inviting, because it's been overtaken by the security parameters we've had to put in place, that it's too institutionalized, and we need to bring in some softer landscapes, I feel like, in there. But my question is, at these locations, is there irrigation? Because some spots are green and some spots aren't, and landscaping that's planted, it seems like it doesn't last very long. So is there irrigation at some of these, at all our schools?
Some yes, and some no, and some's
Okay.
limited on
Okay.
how far. We won't go under a parking lot.
Right.
It's just, it's limited at each school, but we do have a full-time irrigation specialist
Oh, you
with the
do?
district.
So like at
in-house.
Gifford, do we have irrigation?
We do in certain spots, not every spot,
Okay,
Irrigation's
because,
expensive.
yes.
and then, well, it is, but I wouldn't want us to go in and put in new landscaping and not have
Right.
irrigation,
Correct.
so,
I mean, I can specifically look into that school if you'd like
Right.
and
well,
let you
I
know.
agree, Oslo and Gifford both need some attention. So, okay.
Okay, I believe we left off at Sebastian River Middle School. We have some bathroom renovations. Our gang bathrooms there are a lot to be desired, so we're doing total renovations of the gang bathrooms. Some storm drainage repair going on out there. We have an issue with the manhole lifting up when it rains hard, so we need to investigate that. Storm Grove Middle, this summer, or next summer, we'll be sealing the pavers. Sebastian River High School, this is really the gym locker room renovations is what that is, their main gym. It says stadium locker room, but it's really the PE gym locker room renovations. Stadium we're currently working on right now.
Can I ask a question about that?
Question? Yes.
On Sebastian High School, the stadium emergency lighting, can you talk about that a little bit? What that is, what shape it's in, and
Yeah.
that it's not for another year? Can you just talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit?
so we have some money for stadium renovations, yeah. So that's in the current year right now, so we're gonna be looking to add, the emergency lighting was basically, it's non-functional right now. The batteries are gone out of it, so we're gonna go ahead and get that up and running again.
Now,
Yes,
so that's completing the 2018-19 year.
Correct.
And so, in doing that, then, I see there's nothing here for 1920, and then it comes back 2021. And again, the reason I bring that up is it's a safety and security issue. And that's
Correct,
come up
yeah.
before about the safety and security of our outdoor spaces and our stadiums and how those get used.
yeah, so, yeah, we have that out in 2021, but we're gonna, when we finish the locker room project, I'm hoping to use money that are left over there to supplement, if that makes sense. We have contingency money
Sorta.
in the project.
Yes, that makes sense, but my lack of knowledge about what constitutes emergency lighting and the issue that it plays into safety, I don't know if this is the time and place to have that conversation, but I would like us to be attentive to that.
Yes.
Because it's such a big issue and it's come up over the past year, particularly around large events.
Correct. Yep.
Mrs., or Mrs. Bamberg, then Mrs. Justice.
Yeah, this is where I want to bring up this discussion again. So I see under Sebastian River High School and Vero Beach High School, you have the sound system improvements set in 2023 and 24.
Correct.
That's from a walkthrough with the principal?
I'll let John speak to that one.
That was, yes, we've had walkthroughs at both PACs with both principals last year and the year prior, and we've covered everything from new lighting, seat covers, carpet replacement. So when
Stage
we're-
uplift, things like that.
Yes, ma'am. So those maintenance things we take care of,
Mm-hmm.
seat recovering, lights, but a full replacement of the full sound system has to be budgeted. So this got attention last year,
Mm-hmm.
so we committed, I know I committed an email that we would put it in the 5-year plan, and we did. But it is in an outlying year, it's not something immediate. This is very expensive at both schools.
Yeah,
So it
I
is in
see
an
that.
outlying year, but now, when we're made aware of these issues from the public, the board, the principal, when we're made aware of it, we schedule it.
Okay,
So-
the reason why I ask why it's so far out is because we're hearing already from community members, from other people, we use those two facilities a lot, and they do generate funds. And when you have facilities, I know for a fact of a group that wanted to use one of them, but decided not to because of the sound system. And so we're losing those opportunities. I think also we're losing opportunities because of scheduling issues, and we talked about that. But not that it's a moneymaker, we don't need to look at it that way, but if we're going to open it up for the public to use, it needs to be a premier facility to use. And I think if we're looking at 2023, I know it's not a safety issue, so it comes behind safety issues, but it is something that I think maybe could be bumped up.
Like I said, we were made aware of it last year from the principals. Oh, we have these issues. Well, we were working on other issues that, when they do their walkthroughs and they don't say, hey, this is specifically the problem, year after year after year, it doesn't get scheduled.
Right.
So last year, we physically went there and had these, I say, courageous conversations with the principals. What are the problems in the PACs? What are you having? And then, okay, we need full sound system replacement. So, we will take the direction either way, but I just want to, we have not been ignoring it in facilities. We weren't aware of it. That's what I'm just
No,
trying to say.
I get that.
I think that is a discussion, too, that we need to have, because it goes back to the facilities use fees. Because if you're correct, if you are going to open it up, but people are paying a fee for that, a percentage of it should go towards the upkeep and replacement of the sound system that, that's part of that user piece. It's reinvested into what it is, what you're charging the fee for.
Absolutely. That's another conversation for,
Right.
that we need to dive into.
But that's how you keep up with those things.
Mrs. Justice?
Thank you very much. If we could go back up to Sebastian River Middle School, I see in 2022, 2023, that there's like $11 million scheduled for renovation or expansion. So I'm just curious if we could talk about the classroom addition, that's on line 81. And then I see that we had the cafeteria expansion renovation already previously scheduled, and that's still there. So I'm just curious about, if we could talk about that, how it was decided that there would be a classroom addition and.
So we have 7 portables out there currently, so we're trying to get rid of those portables. We pay a lease on them every month. We have impact fee money that we need to spend for generated student stations, and that fits into that. So
Perfect.
those are the reasons why.
Thank you.
Well, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's good.
Because I do not like to see portables at all.
It's definitely it is a
And
need
I
up there.
appreciate, I know it's 2022, but that'll be here before we know it. And I look forward to.
No, really, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a sincere comment. I think it's true. It will be here before we know it, and it's good that we're planning to be able to do that and use those impact fees for when
Absolutely.
we're there. So,
Mrs. Rosario?
Going back to Sebastian River High School, cleaning the awnings that are in the actual auditorium, so above some of the doorways going out and then above what would be, I can't even tell you where they are, but there are some awnings that are in there on the interior,
So those
not on the
aren't
exterior.
capital projects. That's not anything that would be in here. That would be a maintenance type issue,
That's a
usually a work
maintenance.
order.
Yeah.
So capital projects are strictly,
Yeah, those are
generally things that we
really
need.
dirty.
engineering on. Their
But
high-price
Mr.
tickets.
Tuskey is.
He's on it. I see him writing
Yeah,
notes.
he's writing it down.
Yeah, it's got,
If Mr. Michael's watching, he's
thick,
probably
thick.
dispatching someone there now, so.
He
Yeah.
probably is.
Are
Thank
you, are
you.
we talking the doors walking into the Performing Arts Center above them?
once you are, I don't know if they are on the exterior door, but once you're in the auditorium and you're seated, if you look around the auditorium, there are awnings that are over where children can actually perform. So there have been, I don't know what they're balconies, the balcony areas.
Mezzanine,
I'm sorry?
like a little mezzanine area.
Yeah, kind of like a mezzanine area, and there are in a couple of places around the room. But when you look at it, I mean, it is filthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think
It's just very dusty.
I would like to see a walkthrough through, is it facilities you're saying? You know, a pressure washing, that is time. It takes time to do that, but it's not as costly as this, and it could help improve the looks of these schools.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a huge
These are
change.
interior you're talking about.
Yes,
though.
interior,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
actual
You don't wanna pressure
auditorium
wash
from
that.
inside.
They're not pressure washing.
No, but there are ways
Oh,
that
okay.
facilities can
Yeah,
clean it up.
Okay, I'm thinking that,
The outside,
No,
though, is
inside,
pressure.
okay,
interior.
never mind.
So-
I just have a quick question. So it's great we're having this conversation and the board members are able to share some different things they've noticed, and it's good to be able to talk about that. In the course of the year, if you're a board member and you're out somewhere and you're noticing something, as you as superintendent.
Should call me.
You should call, we should call you.
Call me or email me.
you. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
What
you.
I like to do is take pictures, and so, you know, when I'm out, and if I
And then
see
just
it,
email
and
it,
just.
yeah. Okay, perfect.
And just for the record, we did pressure clean the exterior of the Vero Beach Pack last year,
Yes.
which we had to bring in scaffolding and
I
and a
appreciate that.
company.
Thank
We
you.
pressure cleaned the full
Okay.
outside of that one because we were getting complaints, so.
I was one of those complaints, so thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate it. And you
All
did it
right.
over spring break.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, moving along, Treasure Coast, we have some roof replacement money in there, and also a marquee sign. So again, if marquee signs are an issue, we probably need to know about that before we finalize this, but decision.
I didn't ask, let me just clarify that, because you just said if it's an issue. I didn't ask because I thought it was an issue, or I
Okay.
have a concern. I just see marquee sign money, $60,000, and I think your answer was really appropriate.
Right.
I think it is a communication issue, and I do think it's important. It's just, you know, when we're looking at every dollar we spend being questioned as far as facilities and security enhancements and those things, I think it's just really important to be very intentional.
Yes. And I probably should throw out the buzz phrase, it's helping brand our schools. We're branding our schools. The principals really want to showcase their schools being competitive. They want to draw in new people moving to the new area. We can all agree Vero Lake Estates is a very large area. When you drive by, you would like to see that. And for the record, Mr. E will be doing his messages bilingual as well, too, at Fellsmere. So that's another really good outreach strategy that he's going to use with it.
Even on a more basic level, that you don't have to have a custodian going out there and changing letters all day
Right,
long.
right.
It's done on a computer, it's much
No.
more efficient. The custodian can be out
Yeah,
doing
and
other things.
I think one of our priorities over the last couple of years is the parent communication part, and driving by, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've went to drop off the kids, and I'll see the marquee, and it reminds me, oh, it's like, oh, yeah.
Wednesday, okay.
Yeah, so
I
it's,
felt it was important, that's
it
why I
is
left them in
the-
there. I had kind of struggled with, do we
It
do
is
this
a
or not,
very-
I
in light
don't
of all
always
the
ask because
security.
I'm criticizing, sometimes I just want clarification.
and so, yeah, the communications to the parents is a great reminders for us.
Okay.
You're switching the page. Can you go back to Vero Beach Elementary?
Mhm.
Oh, bench cover. What is
Oh,
that?
I didn't even do Vero Beach.
Yeah,
I
okay.
completely skipped that, didn't
Yeah, that's okay.
I? For their seating dismissal. So there's an area behind, in their parent pickup loop, directly behind the covered walkway, there's an area that we have for seating that's not covered. So what we're going to
Okay.
do is we're going to go in there and cover that seating area.
Are you familiar with the Buddy Bench project with recycling plastic bottle tops? Okay, I'll get that information to you because it's a great project for kids to be able to do, to put benches in their recess areas that are done with recyclable plastic. And it's a wonderful school project to do.
Is that where you sit if you want a buddy, and you sit on the
Yes.
bench, and then somebody comes
Yes.
over and wants to be your
Yes,
buddy?
if you want a buddy, you sit on the buddy bench and that buddy comes
need a
over
buddy
and
bench.
is your friend now. So,
I need a buddy bench.
we need a buddy bench.
Sweet.
I'll get that information to you. Okay.
I'm sitting with you. I'll be your buddy. Okay.
Really, if we can have humor, that's great.
Buddy benches are good, I'm just saying.
And where did that's a new initiative that was started the last year, correct?
We've been doing them in another county that I've been
Okay.
working in, that I no longer work in as of tomorrow. But that Buddy Bench project is wonderful, and the whole school gets involved, and they collect the bottle tops. So, and it's a great way to recycle bottles, so I will get that information to
Okay.
Dr. Moxley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Buddy Bench sounds like an excellent day of caring project for a school.
Ah,
That is an
love
excellent,
it.
you know? You
Very
both
good,
brought that up,
Mr.
so.
Teske.
Love it.
Yeah.
What a great way to combat bullying.
Well, before we're still, we're going to, okay, let's go
I
on.
was moving to the Flick. So at the Flick Teaching Learning Center, we have a PE locker room renovation project in there that was actually, going back a couple of years, we moved it out because we needed to address the single point of entry.
Can we go back, I'm sorry, to the Burbage High School, the pack? The sinks in, I know we're doing this right now, but I'm gonna say it because it's on my mind. The sinks in that pack, I was just there for a performance on Sunday, and one of the sinks won't go off. They're those old, but those sinks are really old in there, and it was running water, and as the environmentalist in me was very concerned.
Our sink and cabinet replacements at schools, it just sounds like, oh, sink and cabinet faucet, but we're going to replace them with more efficient fixtures
Good.
for this type of thing to save water, obviously. So if it's
that's-
running, that's a work order issue.
Yeah, it's the last sink in the women's
the pack.
restroom. Yep, it's the one on the far left.
But that's part of 1819 that you're still, that's not on here, or is that not a
That's
capital?
the red.
No, I think John was just making a general statement there, that when we go through with these cabinet and
Yes.
sink replacements, we put in water
At all the schools.
conserving.
Right, but cabinet and sink replacements, you said when we're doing that, implying it's on a,
We had a
Cycle
school earlier.
somewhere.
Let's see,
So when
Beachland.
you
You
see it.
see a line item that says
Yeah.
cabinets and
Right.
sinks, they're putting more efficient, high-efficient sinks in when they replace
When
them.
we-
And
Yeah.
we didn't have I think to answer your question, we didn't have projects prior to 1920 for cabinet and sink replacements.
but
The
that'll,
maintenance department will go out, and when they have a sink faucet that's leaking, they'll replace it with.
Well, like Dodgertown is one this year that's up for classroom sinks and cabinet
And Beachland.
replacement. So
Beachland.
that will be one of the ones they're talking about.
So, Vero Beach High School parking lot,
Hi,
Light.
where's Mr. Sorcy?
are these,
Lights? Where is he?
are these solar?
LED.
So who's in charge of turning these off at night?
Hey, you'd ask that question today.
But that is a question, I think, no. And you don't have to answer,
I-
I'm just being facetious
I don't believe
here,
that's a
but-
question for me.
No, because we've learned security of our campuses, we need,
It's important.
it's important
They are,
to keep
they will
them
be
on.
LED lights.
So
Honestly, the concern behind that was not, and I'm assuming it was in part the who's turning them on, who's turning them off,
Right.
but we've had some complaints from neighbors, because
Oh.
those parking lot lights in the student parking lot
Are you
there-
telling me it was one of Mr. Sorcy's neighbors, that was one of his friends who lives by there that
I
was
cannot
complaining?
say
and that's why
one
he
way or
always
the
bugs out?
other.
He's buying up property to complain, but,
But those parking lot lights are big halogen lights,
Uh-huh.
and they do just shine right into the neighborhood over
Okay.
there. So when we change these things out to LED lights, they're a lower profile, and it's a more
Okay.
direct light on the parking lot.
kind of like
So-
Sebastian High School.
Correct,
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to
Same.
say, if you've seen Sebastian High School, we added more poles at a lower height with directing the light down more, not up, to be more energy efficient, same type of thing. And then at the high school, you know, your athletic director, your coaches, your administration, They have the key to the electrical shed where they control the lights. But we like to remind everyone that in this day and age with security on Friday nights, we still have people walking around till sometimes 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yep.
So we want to keep the parking lot lights on to help everyone make their way back to their cars, keep them safe, so they are going to stay on later. But we have found in instances where a plant operator or a custodian puts it in the override position, and that's where the timer doesn't work. So when we go in on Saturday morning, we'll call Mr. Aarons, and he'll say, you know, I'm sorry, somebody kept it in override and didn't turn it back down. That way the timer will turn it back off. And we're setting them later till around midnight on Friday nights, so security related. But when they're burning all weekend, that's not correct. No, they shouldn't be on all during the day, and sometimes they work.
Right, and we have to be mindful to the neighbors around the area with those lights. So anyways, I had to ask that question because,
Because it would be sad if it wasn't.
yes, it would.
You want to finish up with Wabasso and?
So at the Flick, we have the PE locker room renovation, and again, that was the one that I said that we had moved out in order to do the single point of entry. Wabasso, we have a marquee sign going in there as well.
What
And then-
about Vero Beach High School, or Flick? I know did we ever put a marquee sign over there? Because I know they were requesting one 2 years back.
Not
No.
yet. No, we
No.
moved Ace. Ace got theirs next door. No.
That was,
No?
well, it used to be adult ed.
Yeah,
Um,
not the Flick yet.
Yeah. No, we haven't done the Flick yet, so that can be,
Because to me, it's important as we're putting these in to be consistent with our vendor who,
and we've been trying to do this. This kind of initiative started a few years ago with the marquee signs, where we've gone through and we've done a couple here, a couple there. You know, every year, again, we're trying to just add some to where we can get to the whole district having marquee signs.
okay. Well, I do recall that was a request about 2 years ago from Mr. O'Keefe, and obviously we had safety, security first, so that's,
And paint.
And it may be
He really wanted
Absolutely
paint.
It may be
paint,
something that
tile,
we
and-
can look at as we finish up the single point of entry here. If we have funds left over, we can look at a marquee sign there as well.
And just a little shout out to our community partners, because I know we did look at a lot of improvements, but it was the Rotary Club, correct? Was it Sunrise Rotary that planted all of the plants
Yes, ma'am.
at the Flick, which looks really lovely? So thank you to our community partners.
Rotary Club did the purchase and the physical planning, the Centennial Committee and the Downtown Cultural Arts Council. All three of them worked together to design the layout for the Flick, the placement of the trees. It was a year-long, several meetings, very successul, but they
And
all
I know our
did.
neighbors are very appreciative, that the
Yes.
people that live around there are appreciative that it softened it a bit.
Yes.
I have a question. Go ahead.
About Wabasso, did you recently replace the air conditioning in there?
We are in process of doing that right now. That's a summertime project right now.
Okay, so that would not, because it's not written on this plan nor on the
You
other
won't see
one.
that because it's in the current 18-19 fiscal year.
But it's,
It's not on the 18-19
So it was in
either.
the 17-18
So it's, and
fiscal
it's
year.
kind
Yeah,
of a carryover?
correct, yep.
I've another question about Wabasso. This might actually be facilities. I love the Wabasso School. The history behind that building is, if those walls could talk, I can only imagine years and years and years. But upstairs, the two, what seem to be abandoned spaces that are just beautiful classrooms, old classrooms, I don't know what they used to be. Is there a plan at all to do something with it?
I
I
can
mean, I know
speak-
it's locked with a gate and
Yeah,
no one
we-
can go up, it's
In order,
now,
in order for us to use those two, we have to add an elevator to that.
and, oh, because of the ADA?
Correct.
Compliance.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just the plan, I guess it's just to stay the way that it is now?
Until we find enough money to add an elevator and renovate that upstairs, yes.
When we
I think
were,
it's just a storage right now.
Dr. Pierandozzi has plans. I spoke with her a few weeks back. Right now, she's collecting, storing artifacts, antiques, those types of things up there that people have donated to Wabasso School. But, you know, one day her vision is to either use it, have it like a museum, a walkthrough.
Yeah.
So, but there are all these codes and things that we have to do ahead of time. There's no air condition up there,
Yeah.
so, but
Stairways be extra.
it's on the radar, it's being talked about, so that's a good thing.
They're so beautiful. I love that building.
Okay.
So everything below that, you see recurring capital maintenance items, those are funds that are provided to maintenance for them to do their day-to-day maintenance.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Mrs. Ruck, may I, for a moment? I think Bob Michaels and his team, Ann Reven, the custodial team, have just done a great job. I think the schools have, yeah, you're welcome. I think that the schools have really, I know that the work orders are being completed, and they feel that the communication has been better. I think we saw some decline in illnesses across the district this year and attendance because of the fact that I think the schools are cleaner, and Ann has definitely taken some steps to invest in some equipment to keep our classrooms cleaner. So just a big shout out to them, because I do think you guys are working very well together, and I hear from the principals and the teachers that things are getting fixed, so.
Great, thank you.
I can, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you got big kudos yesterday from custodial staff in St. Lucie County about what you're doing, that, especially with these little machines that go through the buses to look for bacteria.
Yeah, the
Yep.
ATP screeners.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know those existed and what you were doing, so thank you for that, because I don't think people know that you're actually cleaning the bus seats and everything so that we're getting rid of bacteria that, it's really important that we do that because, like you said, the illnesses, and we don't want to have what other districts are dealing with, so, thank you.
Thank you, I'm glad you all are pleased, because we have a presentation this afternoon on
Yes.
custodial initiatives.
Okay, so are we complete with recurring capital maintenance items?
Yeah, unless there's
Okay.
any specific
Can
questions.
I have a question
Yes.
about the white fleets? Can I
Okay.
go back to the question? The white fleets, so over a 5-year period of time, this is line 14 on the first page, just so that I understand, as a new board member, $500,000 is budgeted for replacement of the white fleets. So is that something, I mean, cars can last a long time. Is that something that we have to do every so often, every few years? Like, how does that work?
We have not been. We have some that are 10, 12, 13
Okay.
years old.
Okay,
We have some vehicles that some employees refuse to ride in. We have some where the cosmetics are falling apart, the seats are falling apart inside. The intent and so the white fleet replacement is really, it's not my area, but I've been overseeing it in the absence of other assistant superintendents. But the intent now is to purchase one for IT, purchase one for attendance, purchase one for the district office, purchase one for the physical plant. Each year rotate, because we have to start replacing some of these vehicles. They are falling apart. We're spending more money on maintenance. So this is, of course, not buses, and we know the price of a car, $100,000, doesn't go a long way when you're trying to get 3 or 4 a year. But, we can produce a spreadsheet we have on the age of them, the mileage. We're prepared to show everyone how old they are and how we need to
I was just
replace them.
curious because I don't know what the process is for that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're outside even here in the district campus, you can see some of the white fleeted cars, I mean, just,
Sure.
parked. And so I was wondering what happens with them and where they, anyway, so I just needed that clarification for me.
It's
Thank
really a
you.
purchasing issue. It's a Jeff Carver, but, speaking with Nick, you throw $100,000 at one group, the other group's gonna, be stranded on the side of the road, So we don't want to start using Enterprise and towing our vehicles. We have a contract with them. We want to start replacing these. We're going to put them on .gov and sell and get what we can for them. They're old, but just get on a rotation system where we're being equitable with these vehicles.
Okay, and
Mrs. Bear, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I had a second. I don't see the alternative high school here
Ace.
anywhere. So I'm kind of wondering why we've left them out in terms of our schools.
So they did fall under the technical college. Now they're in the concretables. Most of their projects were security-based, security. Most of the things we've done there were security-related, but, I mean, Nick can speak to
There's just not
specifics.
much that we can do on, I mean, they're concretables now, they're in 5 concretables and a big portable administrative area. So as far as, and we lease that. So we don't want to be spending bundles of money on something that we lease that we're going to turn around at the end of that lease when we decide that, if we decide that we're going to move that big office building out of there, we've got to pay for them to take it out and to bring it back to the state that it was dropped off to us. So,
Who do we lease it? I mean, who are we leasing it
Mobile
from?
Modular, we lease all of our portables from Mobile Modular. The
I would-
concretables are not leased, I'm just speaking of the main office area.
The main
there, right?
office area where the classroom and the principal's office and the entrance is.
Correct.
I would like to still see alternative high school on this list, even if there is nothing budgeted,
And-
because
and
they
it
are
used to
a
be-
school.
It used to be on there, it's probably just a,
Yeah, they are not the technical college. They
No,
are
they're
a
not.
school in our,
Okay.
district. I don't want to ignore them at all. And then in years to come, if they were to show up on the list, it would appear as if, well, where were they before? So they have always been a school. We're not recreating
they
a
have
school.
been
we're not
on there, I
reopening.
just think when we changed the Technical Career Center Adult Ed, we,
Yeah. We,
Yeah.
just a
we,
missight, just
we-
left it out.
presented to the board before the new board members were seated, a Phase 1 operation of technical career. They were involved because it was a full-phased operation with ACE and adult ed and technical career. And then we had a Phase 2 presentation. So we covered it all there, but we will absolutely add them into this plan.
So they don't need anything with regard to capital, is that just clarifying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Falls under the
So-
recurring maintenance part.
Maybe
Well,
recurring
anything that
maintenance.
we were to do there, yeah.
So what about the question of the, let me see where my notes are. Getting rid of some portables from Sebastian River Middle, that we're trying to get rid of some of those portables to create classrooms and instead possibly give a portable to the alternative high school. Has that come up at all?
We
Has-
have placed that.
We just
portable.
placed a portable,
Oh, you just placed a portable?
Yes, ma'am.
currently a
Where?
portable,
At alternative?
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good.
On where their basketball court is, in the right-hand corner. So Mr. Hart, we all did several walkthroughs there. You know, you don't want alternatives numbers to be up, but it just naturally happens.
Right.
So he was servicing students in his cafeteria, like, we'd physically walk in and see teachers and
Yep.
teacher assistants teaching in the cafeteria, and, that just wasn't acceptable.
Yep.
Your goal is to get these students back to their home schools, but in the meantime, he needed more classroom space. So the federal building, the Title I building, which is the old youth center, if you grew up here in Vero, we cannot house students in there because it's a wooden structure. So we had to place a portable in the rear of the basketball court, and that is an additional, he's using it for enrichment, pull-out, any support, special needs services that he has. So
Great.
it is there.
It's currently there.
But does, that impedes the basketball court though, right? They-
Just
we
a
placed
small
it behind
corner.
it.
Yeah.
We placed it behind the
Right
basketball
behind it?
court in the grass
So they
area.
kind of walk around to the back of it if they need,
Walk right through,
Basketball's still good.
can still play
Great.
basketball.
and so that's an additional classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
And we haven't gotten as far as to discuss their cafeteria seating area, right? We haven't gotten that far.
So his cafeteria is within that large modular unit, the
Right.
office, the clinic. It's got to have a hand washing station. It's got to have warm water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we couldn't just say, hey, this other portable is your cafeteria. We looked into health
Mm-hmm. Right.
department restrictions. I've talked with Mr. Hart and food service. We're just going to stagger the lunches at different times. So if it is crowded, you have to stretch out your serving period. So that's, principal would say, oh, I've got 50 kids I got to feed. Let's just open that window up for lunch so it's not so crowded in here. And he's going to make that happen.
Can we
He's gonna
get,
do it.
can we get him like benches with an umbrella or something? So if somebody doesn't want to eat inside, they can eat outside, and that just kind of frees up
That would
some
be
of the
an
space
FF
in there?
That would be an FF&E item that Mr. Hart would request from,
It's also a
Finance.
supervision issue.
Yes,
It's
it
a
is.
supervision
Well,
issue.
we've already talked about it, so he
Yeah.
can, he doesn't believe that he has an issue there. It's just for the occasional, 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 people who want to sit outside. That kind of frees up some of that space in there.
If he would request
Just
through
kinda-
purchasing, through finance, FF&E, he can do that like any principal and
Okay.
do that.
I would just think that that room, again, I know that I've mentioned this before, that when you walk in there, for me, it poses a safety hazard because there isn't space for you to actually walk through in case of an emergency, to
Well,
get,
we
you
did
have to kind of
meet
snag.
when we built that, we had to meet every code.
Yeah.
Every fire code that allows for egress, so it is built.
Well, no,
in
the
order-
build is, but when you add in all of those
Tables.
tables, the cafeteria benches that are in that room.
Right.
I don't want to say it's blocking some of those egresses, but it makes it's not an easy exit. So now you have to kind of maze your way through to get to an exit in case. Anyway, I'm just throwing out some ideas to kind of help them in that area. But thank you for putting in the portable. That makes me happy. I'm sure that makes Mr. Hart happy.
Mr., Mrs. Barrenborg.
Could we go to the recurring capital maintenance items? I don't know if you were going to discuss these, but on line 129, playground equipment. I had the wonderful experience of having a new playground that we got to, choose and put in, and I learned a lot about what goes into playground choosing, because I thought it was going to be simple, and it wasn't so simple. But my question is on ADA compliance. So some of the playgrounds that we have at certain schools, I see that we're starting to put in some special needs equipment for kids that need that.
Yes.
But I only see it at certain schools. Are we doing that across the district at all our schools?
No, if an IEP is written, or we are contacted by Mrs. Clark or VPK or whoever we're contacted with, that this is written into fine motor skills or OTPT, we meet those accommodations. This summer, we're putting in the wheelchair swing at Rosewood. So we had the parent call and say, we're here, we're at Rosewood, the swing doesn't fit anymore. We had a swing, his wheelchair's larger, ordered a new one. So we basically work with the ESE department, and they let us know, this is what I need, this is my clientele of what I have.
Well, the only reason why I say that is because you never know when a child's going to move into your district.
Right.
And I had that happen to me when I
Right.
was running school. And at that point, your dollars are spent. And so here's this child that doesn't have the equipment that every other child has access to. So my concern is, why are we doing it as needed? Why aren't we looking at building that into our budget and saying all schools need accessible equipment?
Absolutely.
Great, I don't disagree with that. This pot of money, we're getting about 3 to 4 schools done a year, which is a really good turnaround. We work with code and compliance in the building department. Mr. Remley, Mr. Coatman, they write something up, they see something, we correct it, we fix it. We do keep monies saved within that to use like this swing at Rosewood. So we don't exhaust the fund. If someone moves in, and hopefully during that, that IEP process, hey, we're coming to your school, coming to your district, there's a few months ahead of time, we would have that notice. In a perfect world,
Not always, yes.
not always, I agree. But we have some special needs equipment we keep in the warehouse over in our area that we can move to different schools. So we have some equipment there ready to mobilize, if you would say,
Okay.
for that.
So going back to this, these are new playgrounds that you're looking at putting in?
Not full new playgrounds, replacing aging equipment and
Okay.
putting new code compliant pieces in. Not an entire new playground, replacing things.
Because I know when we got to choose a new playground, that was one thing we considered, is putting in all those ADA accessible pieces so that we didn't have to
Correct.
worry about that, a child moving in at the last second. It was there.
Yep.
So
last
if we could
year-
look at that.
Last year, we did a better job working with the building department, Mr. Remley, going to the SAC meetings, going to the PTA meetings, meeting with the principal, because, and being a principal, you get 100 catalogs a day mailed to you in the mail, and the principal will go, I want this one, and then unfortunately, in years past, we've ordered and put things in and had to take it out, because it wasn't Florida statute compliant. So the schools we designate for the upcoming years are put on alert to get their committees ready, and Daryl will go out with the catalogs, and if those teachers and parents say, we have a need here, we're going to meet that need. We're going to tell them, this is what you can and can't order. But nothing prepares for, hey, I just drove in and I'm here. You're right. I mean,
Okay.
That couldn't happen.
The
too.
other thing I want you to be aware of is when you have those committees, again, color. Because that came up in when we chose our playground, is, again, looking at school colors. It's important.
Sure.
Okay.
Color is very important, yep.
Where are we with replacing all of the surfaces at the playgrounds? Is that complete?
So we did a full replacement of all of our schools with we call it fall protection, the mulch, the wood chips after Irma.
We had to take all the sand,
Yes.
all the sand had to go. So
We had to.
we have no sand.
I'm not going to tell you we're done with everything. I'll have to check on that for
But
you.
we continue to.
Yes, we're continually doing that. I will get you the exact.
I mean, I just think, we've discussed this before.
Yes.
It's a medical issue, it's a physical issue for ADA compliance. I mean, it's just a lot of things, and I know that we're working on that, so.
Some
So
schools
those
have
would be
3 and 4
areas that
playgrounds. you know.
Bob would take care of out of this
Out of
recurring.
this recurring,
Correct.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yes.
That's what, that was
Yep.
kind of my question as to how that happens, that funding, because it's expensive, I know.
It
It's
is.
Removing the sand and then buying the mulch is expensive, and, playground equipment is very pricey, so.
We did Pelican Island last week. If you're
Yeah.
visiting there, we put in the new foam playground. We had to grind out some stumps. We're slowly doing them all. I can't tell you if we're 100%, but I'll get that to you, let you know where we're at.
Does that fall underneath the funding for the playground equipment? That would be
Yes, ma'am.
playground equipment?
And it can be both, because we did put some benches in there, and we did do some repair for the fall
Okay.
protection.
I think Bob can use those funds kind of
You can move them up and down.
move them around how he wants. I just wanted to point out too, in like some of those outlying years, we have increased the amount of money that we've given to maintenance. Not me, but from capital to kind of help them out because we see the need that they just honestly don't have enough money to really do what they need
Okay.
to do around the schools.
So, we need to, we'll take Mrs. Rosario's question or comment. We need to dive into 2018-19, so we can look at what projects are still left on the docks to take care of. And then I had one question before we jumped over there.
Yeah, it's just a follow-up question with the sand. Are we replacing all of the sand? What was the plan? Were we supposed to replace all of the sand with mulch or with the foam?
Yes, doesn't have to be the foam. If it's a VPK, pre-K, ESC playground, we will put the foam for the fall protection. We have to be 18 inches for the mulch, so sand washes away. So FEMA says, hey, I'm not going to reimburse you every year you have a hurricane, put in the wood chips, get rid of the sand. So I want to say I'm throwing a number out, about 18 playgrounds we had to work on after Irma.
So what
But I'll get all
determines an
that for you.
ESC playground?
Equipment, size of the equipment. So at Citrus, I had the playground in the back, originally built with some ESC funds. The height from the ground, all those types of things. Specifically, when you order that equipment, you have to make sure it's ESC compliant. Everybody will label something for you to buy it, but we will have Daryl Remley, our playground specialist, inspect all of it beforehand.
So the
to do
students
that.
in the building are not the determining factor that the playground would be an ESC playground? It is the actual equipment? Is that how you all?
So the equipment can be ordered based on what units are housed at the school, what clusters you might have, or what units are there. So it's based on the students that are there and what their need is. If they're getting hurt on a primary playground or a 4 or 5, that's not going to be compliant, so that specific equipment needs to be ordered for them. But if a superintendent says, hey, put a EBD unit at this school and they don't have it, we're going to need time to order it, schedule it, and put it in. But the superintendent can do that. They can say, put this group of students at this school. So
Yeah.
the sooner we find out, the better, so we can look at the playground and make sure they have the proper place to play.
Yeah, it would be nice to have all of our playgrounds equipped with just the foam, because a student with severe disabilities, as Mrs. Berenborg mentioned, comes in, they're not going to be able to easily maneuver through mulch. I mean, that's just something, just the same way with sand. It's very difficult for them, so
So
thank you for clarifying
Yeah,
that.
and I'm not an expert on the code and compliance, but I think having to move the child to the playground is the fall protection. I don't know the specifics on that, if they all have to be foam, that type of thing, but I'll research it.
Okay, thank you. My last question and comment, you don't have to answer it now, but I just want to put it on the radar. Over the last couple of years, I've noticed a drainage issue at Glendale Elementary over as you're coming in and by the retention pond. Those potholes that keep coming up, and it's because of the water just sitting there. And you guys are doing a good job of fixing the potholes, but really, we're not looking at the drainage issue. I don't know what we have to do
So,
there.
just to give you a little insight onto that, so we had talked at one of our other meetings about the wayfinding, and what I've asked the engineer to do, the traffic engineer with the wayfinding project, is to do an asphalt assessment at schools too, because I don't want to go and start putting down markings on asphalt that we need to turn around and rip up. So he's given me an asphalt assessment on those schools as well, so I'm going to take that assessment. And I know the issue that you speak of at Glendale, so we'll probably look, before we do the markings on the ground there on the asphalt, we're going to have to do asphalt repair there. So
So that would be somewhere, because that's expensive to do that. That would be
can
somewhere
come
in
out
the
of our
5-year.
That can come out of our safety and security money, because it's related to the
In and
wayfinding
out.
project.
Okay.
So
All
in
right.
our pot of security enhancements,
Mhm.
we can take that.
Okay, great. And then,
Sorry, may I, real quick? I don't know if we're going to get to this. I don't know where to have this discussion here, but the school board room office does not have any electrical outlets.
School board.
We have one electrical outlet in each office, which seems to work fine, but Nancy can kind of talk more about this. There are no electrical outlets in any of the corridor here in our office. There was one electrical outlet that was next to the refrigerator, which before Nancy, the executive secretary had to run an extension cord behind the sink because it was so unsafe, that Nancy was able to ask for that to be switched so that the extension cord was not, running along the sink, which obviously we know is dangerous. So that was able to be done, but is there a way that we can kind of look at where the placement of the electrical outlets are in there? I believe the reason why that happened, Nancy explained, was that when the building was built, they went over budget, is that right?
We wouldn't have
They went
taken out
over-
electrical outlets for budget cuts.
I don't know.
That's
I'm
a-
not sure.
That's a minimal
Yeah.
amount of money there, so.
Well, maybe that's something that we
We'll
can.
look at it
It
to see
might
if
not
that-
even cost any,
Yeah.
but that would be something that I think could definitely help in there, especially when we're
we have about
thinking
20
some of these other
minutes.
things.
Can we dive into the projects that we're still trying to get completed for the 2018-19 that we've budgeted that
Okay.
aren't complete is what I'm really interested in.
So Dodgertown roof replacement, it's in progress right now, so
Okay.
it will be complete by the end of the summer. The Glendale fire alarm, we haven't completed that yet, and the reason being is the fire code changed. When the original amount of money was placed in here, the estimate came in. The fire code is now changed, so when we go to change out that panel, we also have to change out now every device in the school. So and that's just because the code changed. We had to do that at Sebastian River High School, so we ended up taking the money for Glendale and moving that into Sebastian, so we were able to do Sebastian. So now I've got to find money again to go back and do Glendale.
Okay.
And that was just a code change. There's really nothing that we can do about it. They say now that you have to have these
Okay.
audible alarms and all of this and that, so.
Okay,
So that's where we stand with that.
Osceola,
Osceola roof replacement. The roof replacement at Osceola, we have it designed and ready to go. However, we had summer school there.
okay.
So we're gonna roll that over.
And it's going to be done by August 12th.
It will be next summer.
We moved
It won't be, because we had to move it out of this year because they had some concerns there with their summer school that they
Okay.
didn't want us to be around there, so. The PE locker room project at Oslo Middle is complete.
Okay.
The CNG pump station, we don't have the truck anymore, so we've told Bob that he could use those funds for whatever else he needed to.
Okay.
Roof replacement at Rosewood is in progress. Chiller replacement at Sebastian Elementary is in progress. Single point of entry, we still have that in there, that's complete.
Mhm.
The chillers at Sebastian River Middle School are complete. Single point of entry will be complete by the end of August, or, I mean, the beginning of August,
Okay,
sorry.
perfect.
The fire alarm upgrade at Sebastian River Middle School, again, on hold because of the funding.
Yeah. Do we know what the new projected cost for that is?
No,
No, okay. Well,
because
that's,
it is very extensive, so now I've got to get an engineer to go through there. Instead of just changing out the panel, which was an easy swap, now we've got to go through and address every device.
okay.
So it's big money, yeah.
All right, well, let us know.
And it's not that these are failing right now, so
No,
we're not in
right.
any danger of fire.
These were just replacement.
Replacement, yeah.
General scheduled
Yeah,
things.
scheduled replacements, yes.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mrs. Orr, Dr. Moxley, so just a question that I would have would be, how do you decide those things, right? It's not failing, because you don't want to wait until it, obviously. So how do you gauge that?
It's just a replacement cycle we look at. We look at the age of the equipment, and then we start,
And are there like general norms for this type of replacement cycle, for this type of equipment across for the usage, for the, let's just say it's, XYZ company says we recommend that these are replaced?
Correct,
Okay, and that's
yeah.
how those decisions
Yeah.
are made?
yeah.
The life cycle of things, like we know air conditioner handlers. We know, okay, what is the life cycle of that? The life cycle of that brand, those kinds of things as you make those purchases. And you build that in because you don't want to, if you build 5 schools in a year, you're going to have the age of those buildings. You don't want those all coming due exactly the same time because of the big ticket item. So you try and start a life cycle
Stagger.
replacement schedule.
And we're working with our maintenance department. They're the ones that are coming to us with a recommendation to change these things because they're having to go out on alarms. They're seeing certain faults that are happening, things like that, so.
So I guess my next question would be, if you had a school where the fire alarm is failing, let's say that, what school was it? Was it Glendale? Let's just say Glendale, for example. Let's say the school opens next year and all of a sudden you recognize that the life cycle of that equipment is not going to be great, that you know that, where do those funds then come? I mean, it's a very expensive thing and you might have to do it, right? Because it's a safety issue. So where would those funds come from?
We would either have to take them from a different project, or like what I try to do is when we finish up projects, we always hear that we have money coming back, and that's where that money goes. That money's there
I
to,
mean, if it becomes a life safety issue, it's not
It's
a
gotta- yeah.
non-negotiable.
So then there's going to
it's
be like
done.
no marquee.
It's
Somebody
done,
might-
and we would
Correct,
shift
yeah.
to take care of that because that becomes a non-negotiable priority.
Thank you for explaining that.
Okay. Storm Grove?
access control, that's in process right now.
Okay,
The stadium locker room at Sebastian River High School in process.
nice.
Stadium bleacher repairs, we're postponing that one until after the football season. Again, not anything that's life safety
Okay.
related. And we had talked about the emergency lighting there, that's where I'm planning on using
So
some of
what,
that
we
funding
think
as
about
well.
January of 2020?
And so let me just clarify, the stadium bleacher repairs, there's just some spalling of concrete and things like that. So it's not anything that's structurally deficient. It's just some cosmetic things that we need to take care of, some
But
things that
that
we need to
is-
take care of before they get to be a problem. It's on
That's a
both
lot of
sides of the
money.
stadium. It is a lot of money, yeah. It's a lot of money to do these fixes because of the way that they have to do it, with scaffolding, shoring up areas.
It's concrete, right?
Yes, it's all concrete, yeah.
Okay,
So that'll happen after this football season. We're going to close down
Okay.
the home side, and then after we do the home side, we'll move to the visitor side. And I don't have, John, I'm missing page 3.
Oh,
Can you have page 3?
Vero Beach Elementary?
Vero Beach Elementary Playground shade cover, Bob was taking care of that. I think that,
It's complete.
I thought it was complete, yeah.
It looks wonderful.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question?
access control at Vero Beach Elementary is in
Question?
progress. Sorry?
Yeah, I have a question
sorry.
about playground cover. As you do your walkthrough, sometimes principals don't think about that. Do we have shade cover at every school?
So we have shade cover at every hardcore cover, first of all. We
Okay.
did that 15 years ago.
Right, for the PE.
The playgrounds, no, they're not all covered yet. We're moving towards that.
Okay, is that something, though, that you're putting on your radar for all schools?
It
Because
is.
sometimes the principal doesn't think that's as important as
do.
something else.
We have a separate tracking board in Bob's office that's strictly playgrounds.
Thank you.
And right now, we're working on a shade covering for Sebastian High School for the football team. So that'll be in place by August.
Great.
So we work our way through because we're funding these. So, yes.
Thank you.
But when a new full playground is built to standard, it is covered now. We're going back and covering old existing playgrounds that didn't originally have it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's one other item.
So where were we?
Access control.
Access control at Vero Beach Elementary is in progress. Access control at Vero Beach High School is in progress. And
Nice.
that's it for 1920.
I do have a question. Do anyone have a question first? My question is with our, I see on line 131, playground equipment, 350,000. Have we installed and utilized all that?
The remaining balance is what we funded the shade at Sebastian High School with within the past 2 weeks. So we
Okay.
contracted with a vendor out of Orlando who has done shade coverings. They did Vero Beach Elementary. So we exhausted that fund,
Okay.
and Sebastian High School actually pitched in and did, I think, about $10,000 as well, too.
Okay.
So yes, I'm going to say
So we have it.
it's exhausted at this
Okay.
point. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
Because I
know.
think, one of my concerns is that we sit here and we look at all these priorities and we get it, I get excited about the projects that are on the list. I just want to make sure that they get, that we do it. So if it's not getting done, if there's a snag in it, if it's something that I can help or the board can help move along, I'm here to support whatever projects that you need to do.
I can comment on how important playgrounds are to me. Coming from the elementary background, you just don't want them to fall apart, and you don't want students injured. So last year, we set up a playground committee within the physical plant, and we meet every Friday. So on my calendar, it says playground meeting weekly, and we review work orders, hazards, the building department, or the code and compliance department comes in, we look at our budget, and we specifically go school by school, and we pick 3 to 4 new schools each year to really move big pieces of equipment. We finished up, Rosewood, Citrus, Treasure Coast. So we are tracking it. At any time, if you were to ask Dr. Moxley for a report on what playgrounds we're working on this week currently, we could give that to you.
Okay.
What our budget is and what we're ordering.
Okay. Mrs. Barrenberg, then Mrs. Justice.
Just not to belabor the playground issue, but I had a lot of dealings with the playground. Are they checked every morning by the custodial staff?
They should be. That's part of the head custodian's job description, is to walk the grounds every morning, and Ann's doing a really good job about reminding them, especially Monday mornings and after holidays, when we know people are visiting.
Thank you, because
But-
people don't realize that other people
Yeah.
use it at night, weekends,
Right.
and then stuff is left there, or something happens to it, so.
So as we've secured our campuses with single point of entry, we've actually kept a lot of people off our campuses, which unfortunately is the way of what we're being directed to do. But that doesn't excuse debris, trees, and limbs, they have to rake the playgrounds. But there'll be a point in time where you'll have probably no access to playgrounds on school campuses just because
I know,
of
it's
the nature of
unfortunate.
security. So, and we've heard that from people in the community. But school safety is our priority. So, once again, if you wish to do that, you would do a facility use agreement with the principal, and you would say, I'd like to use this for, if you have a group or a club or the recreation department or a basketball league, they can still access the facilities, they just have to do it the correct way now.
Thank you. So when I'm looking at you brought a new sheet to us, and this included the 18-19 year. And when I'm looking at the recurring capital maintenance items versus the spreadsheet we were given today, there are a couple items that are not there anymore. So I'm just curious, as you worked through and created this new spreadsheet, I know I mentioned retention pond clean out, that's an item that there was budgeted, there was some money for 2021 or 1920 that was budgeted, but in the previous spreadsheet, but isn't there. And then there's Chiller's yearly service agreement, so I'm just curious where those things go.
We rolled those, like the retention ponds were rolled into site improvements.
Okay.
So they were rolled in, they didn't disappear, they're
They
just
just,
rolled
that was
in.
my question,
Yeah.
and so they were just rolled into other areas?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I just would like to say thank you. I know this is a huge thing to keep track of, but it's important. We appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Especially answering our questions, because sometimes we can be pretty tough.
I hope I answered them.
But we appreciate what you're doing. I think that sometimes people don't realize all that goes on behind to get things safe and for our kids, so thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd like to say to that point was when we talked about safety of schools, and again, you brought up the marquee, so that was an interesting point. But one of the things when our schools were surveyed was that it came back that our schools were in good shape, right? That physically, we do have facilities that are in good shape. And I know that Dr. Moxley's spoken a little bit about having experience with aging schools or needing to expand and not having capital funding, and it can be a huge issue. So to Mrs. Barrymore's point, the intention to this is so important, and the planning, and, we know we would like to do everything, right? And we can't. So thank you for the prioritizing. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, our schools are you've been walking them. What's your opinion, Ben?
Yes, and I haven't gotten to all of them by any shape or form, but the ones that I've walked, they're neat, they're clean. Some of them obviously are brand new, and others, Dodgertown was the one I just went to at the end of the week, and what an adorable school. I love that school too. And I was at Rosewood, and I know Rosewood is an older school. And again, nice and neat and clean, and I walked it, and Mr. Teskey and I had a discussion about what they were doing at that school and the courtyard and just different things, and how they weather and those conversations. But overall, it's been nice to see the condition of our schools.
Florida weather's hard on buildings. I mean, we know that, right? So, you guys do a good job. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to both of you and your teams. I know since Nick's come on board doing this job, and I think you come on around the same time I have, and you've done a really good job, and I do appreciate everything that you do. And I know I've told you that before, but I mean,
Right.
it's really from where it was a few years back to where it is now. And it goes back to also having an assistant superintendent of operations. I think that was a very wise decision, and I think that Mr. Teskey, I appreciate all that you've done.
I have excellent directors.
Yeah.
Excellent,
You do.
excellent.
So, I'm gonna
Great. I just thank you, board members, for all the good discussion and dialogue. It helps us to hear your thinking and where the areas are. And I know there's some schools that were highlighted that need some attention, and I will make sure that this, either this week or next week, I am out in those schools. Those are some that I have not been to yet. And to our team of professionals over here, Mr. Teskey, Mr. Westenberg, and Ms. Copeman, they have been just a joy to work with, and they're very committed to making sure that our schools are addressed and taken care of, and I know they would love to have more money to do everything. And sometimes it isn't about having more money, it's about having the time to schedule the work, because there's times they're very protective of the academic environment for our students, and I appreciate them understanding that, as well as their own expertise that they need to do their job. So thank you to all three of you for a job well done.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
and that's our budget workshop today.
Okay. With that, we're going to adjourn at 11:48.